Maybe switch out. All right, so this is CSC Cup calling the meeting to order. And I have a little preamble here. It says recently, regional and local elected and appointed bodies have been subjected to disruptive, racist, verbal attacks by anonymous callers during virtual public comments. The city of Mountain View is fully committed to racial, religious, cultural equity and justice as we strive to create a welcoming, safe, and inclusive community for all. This advisory body welcomes respectful and non-threatening public comments regarding matters over which the advisory body has jurisdiction. Comments deemed otherwise pursuant to the Council Code of Conduct and the Government Code may be grounds for immediate terminating a speaker's comment period. Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, and it's the time for a roll call. Committee members, Cliff Rains.
Here.
Jessica, I'm here. Lacey Rathburn.
Here.
Here virtually, T.T. Thompson. Here, Don Whitebread. Here. And Vice Chair Regina Sickles and Chair Susie Merhar have excused absences. We've gone to approve the minutes.
I'll move the motion.
Right. I'll second. Right, so we got a motion by Cliff Rains, second Don Whitebread. All in favor?
Aye.
And do we have Lacey?
Got my arm up.
Raising it in Zoom.
It's raised.
Okay. I guess John will let you know maybe what he prefers. I could go either way.
Yeah, just so long as we're acknowledging, and we got a verbal confirmation, so.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Item 4, all communications from the public. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the committee on any matter not on the agenda, because they're limited to 3 minutes to allow the committee from acting non-agenda item. Do we have any public?
We do not have any public online at this point in time. And it appears no public in person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, item 5, open the agenda topics. We gotta do better marketing. I don't think we have anything urgently coming up that we're not aware of.
And this really is a chance for the committee to offer up items that they would like to talk about for future agenda items. For instance, we'll be having a conversation around public art coming up. There will be a conversation on the work plan for next year. So are there other types of topics the committee is interested in having a conversation and being agendized? At this point in time, we can also have the conversation with the chair and vice chair in terms of items that they would like to be added as part of the agenda review process as well.
I'm not sure if you've written this down already because I might have said it in text. And also it might just be something that's already part of the public art strategy, but I do want to re-examine the K-5 policy in terms of what well, let's say our key projects qualify and therefore get public art. Because I remember the first round we revised that, we were like, oh yeah, bike lanes, paths and trails, and playground we found out that the California Street projected bike lane didn't count. And there were a couple other things that I won't get into too much detail here, but
yeah, I thought that would be part of the strategy because I had questions about it in light of the discussion we're going to have regarding Dublin Park. So how do we fund public art and where's it used? Which I thought would be part of the strategy.
Yep.
Other topics, meeting with other committees. We have a downtown and the CPAs folks.
So that's a conversation we're actually going to talk about.
it's on the list.
It's on the list. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. So that's it for M5. Okay, unfinished business. 6.1 capital improvement program, public art project updates that will provide updates on the Park Aquatic Center, active park maintenance, tennis building, transit, and everything access project, and then
Thank you. So a handful of updates for the committee. First, the Rangsdorf Park Aquatic Center. It is on track to open for the summer season. Construction is quite a long ways into the process. There is still some work that needs to be done, so they're working to get that wrapped up for the spring here. And then certainly be open for the summer swim season. If you're interested in kind of watching it, there are webcams, you can watch it in process. The other big thing that will need to happen once the rest of the construction is done, a lot of the testing of the pool equipment. So there's a lot of time built in for that as well, in terms of the opening. In terms of the park maintenance and tennis buildings, on February 27th, City Council approved the mural contracts with Harumo Sato and Fernanda Martinez. One of the comments that was made by council related to the mural Fernanda was going to produce. You may recall in one of the panels that was developed, there were people to represent diversity. Based upon council direction and approval, council approved both agreements and basically said, please provide Fernanda flexibility in whether to include people or not, because that is something she traditionally does not paint. She generally paints in abstract.
It seemed like council and credibility was doing style.
Yeah, so people may be included in the mural or not. Fernanda is contemplating that. Staff is working on getting the contracts executed based upon council's approval now. So
She, with the people on bicycles.
yes,
Abstract.
Fine. I think we just wanna-
Drawing.
Yeah,
But if there are people, they'll be diverse.
I think we do.
Diversity will be encouraged.
That was our last.
that was the direction
Yeah.
from the
We're gonna
VAC.
let her free flag fly.
But ultimately, it is up to the artist to decide to either move forward with that or not. But that was obviously the VAC's recommendation to council. Council decided to provide a little more flexibility as it related to the rendering of people. For those,
Ray controversy has quieted down.
That's
That's a different one?
true.
Too many things going.
and then, so that's the park maintenance and tennis buildings. The transit center project, there is no update for the last update we gave last month. The Evelyn Park will be discussed as the next agenda item, so we're gonna hold off on doing an update on that one. And then, this was missed on the agenda, but just to let folks know, this committee did approve an artist for the Village Akita Park. That proposal and request is going to City Council on May 14th. Based upon what VAC had approved, so we'll take that contract and artist approval and seek council approval for that art agreement. So that's the update on the capital and capital improvement projects that this committee's approved thus far. Any questions? And I do see a hand raised from a member of the public, so not sure if you want to take. Okay.
If they're nice.
Bruce, you should be able to speak.
Yes. And presumably you can hear me.
Yes, thank you.
Hi all. Bruce England, Wisman Station Drive. Just a quick comment that it's, John, I can hear you really pretty clearly, but the others at the other end of the table, not so much. So maybe the Edison horn isn't completely extended out that way. And maybe I should talk to Roger about that. I think you guys might need some more microphones in the atrium room. Because what's that?
We don't have our normal setup. We're just on that.
The
it's not
Zoom
your-
room here is unfortunately wasn't connecting.
Oh,
So we're going through a laptop right now. I do apologize.
Okay. 1980s, the return of the 1980s. Okay.
Yes, I've rebooted it 3 times and I apologize for that.
Okay.
Uh,
No, I
that is-
understood. I just wanted to let you know.
Yes, thank you, Bruce. Appreciate
Sure.
it.
Okay, so on the transit center, it's a little confusing because there was discussion at city council about the undercrossing work. they were given a choice between the Rengsdorf undercrossing and the Castro undercrossing. And I believe that they decided to prioritize Rengsdorf and deprioritize Castro with a date for work on that indefinite. I don't know to what extent that affects the transit center. So that's one comment. If you want to get into that, I'd be happy to hear it. So there's that. And then the other thing is just the amount of money that would be spent on the art that you're discussing. So as you know, the transit center, or not transit center, the public safety building art is now budgeted for $1 million, which is more than is budgeted, as I understand it, is more than is budgeted for the transit center artwork. And yet the transit center is more like a gateway to Mountain View than the public safety building is. And it somehow seems like a mismatch of priorities. Now, it might be that the budget is going to be reset for the transit center art, and I just haven't heard about that yet, or you haven't discussed it. So those are my two sort of questions and areas of interest for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. I'm not seeing any other hands raised.
I have a question about Restore. So do we have any date for completion and we're gonna have the water celebration?
So the question was, is there a date certain for the Rengsdorf Aquatic Center? Not yet. As I was alluding to, they are working to be on schedule and opening for the summer season, but a date has not been established. So as soon as the project is complete, they will work with our community services department to actually do a grand opening, and we'll be able to celebrate the art that was in the different art pieces that the VAC selected. But at this point in time, until there's an end of construction date, we don't have an opening date just yet. So, but they are shooting to be open for the summer swim season.
Just the right. So
I would bought the meal plan. It's always cold.
that's it for the public commentary.
Yep.
Unless new physical in-person public has anything to say about 6.1. Okay. Then let's go on to 6.2, discussion on city council direction for Evelyn Park. Take a vote.
Thank you. So on February 27th, staff brought forward the Evelyn proposal by Looking Up Arts. The item was on consent. It was pulled from consent as council had some questions about the project. And you'll notice in the packet, there is a summary kind of based upon the basic tenets and feedback that council had. Two items in particular. So this item's been re-referred to the Visual Arts Committee for further discussion, contemplation. We do have the artist team here in person, and I'm not sure if your colleague has not joined yet, but you do have the artist team here. So the two pieces of feedback council gave as far as re-referring this to the VAC was, one, how can the public's experience on the ground level? So if you're underneath the piece, and given the different heights, so, you know, at the shortest distance, about 10 feet above, and then certainly scaling up to 25 feet above, how does someone enjoy that and experience that?
And I would say that from the sidewalk as well, not necessarily just like directly.
Sure, but the specific reference was from council was how does someone experience that underneath the piece? And then two, to address the LED lighting and the interaction with dark skies was the guidance and direction to come back to the VAC. Staff did have a conversation with the Looking Up Arts team, and we did share this feedback, and the Looking Up Arts team was also listening to the council meeting, so they also heard the feedback from council. And they, in talking through this, have potentially have a different alternative, but this is really a chance for the VAC to figure out the direction and where to go with this piece. I will share I'll do a screen share with a revised concept that the Looking Up Arts team put together for your consideration based upon this feedback. I did want to share one other additional piece of feedback. We did have a chance to also connect with the Community Services Department. So the Community Services Department is the team that supports parks. And they took to heart kind of the feedback from council as well. Ideally, this park does not have any actual lighting for evening time. It was meant to be, once it goes dark in the park is technically closed or officially closed. And so staying in that spirit, if there was going to be lighting, having the lighting shut off within the closure of the park. So typically, Mountain View Parks close technically a half hour after sunset is really the rule of thumb. So if there is going to be lighting, really would like to see that be considered as part of this piece. So Leslie Entreat is here from Looking Up Arts. I know they have, it's going to be really hard to see for all of you, but I will put it up on the screen and maybe you can talk through kind of what your thoughts are in terms of revision. So let me bring that up.
You also have a scheme for what the park design is going to be. Which would the piece would obviously fit into it, but just without the piece, what the park design is going to.
So I'm gonna need a minute to pull that up. It's a great question. But let me at least start with kind of the concept around, and you may all have to get a little bit closer to me. Sorry for that. But just so our friends online are able to see it. I'm going to scoot this back a little bit more as well. And I'm not sure if you want to kind of talk through this a little bit, what you were considering.
Yeah, sure. So we call the concept Butterfly Reflect. It's inspired by the monarchs themselves who visit our Bay Area every year, spend their hibernation time here, and go back towards Canada in this multi-generational journey. That's the inspiration. The piece itself is a murmuration of the 5 monarch butterflies that are kind of like on top of each other, distanced, that simulate the look of being under a flock of butterflies, actually a kaleidoscope of butterflies that are flying away. That's the term for a word. Yeah, right. And then with the initial design, we wanted these butterflies to have LEDs at the bottom, so you can experience that the show we will create inspired by these butterflies. And then since that initial concept, we made a revision where we changed the design to be much more like visually, in terms of light, friendly during the day and during the night. So rather than having an opaque body and have an LED, for lack of a better word, screen underneath, now they are all translucent cells. So during the day, the sunlight will illuminate them naturally, and at night, side emitting LED diodes will indirectly light just the cells.
Are these lights mounted around the?
Yeah, so the next, right, okay. So the next slide will, it's okay. So it actually breaks down each wing into these layers that will be carefully crafted and be integrated into each other. So we're not using any colors that don't belong to the monarchs. They're all colors inspired by monarchs. The oranges, the beige, the black, and some blues. And each layer will capture one of that color aspect. And the orange tint would be this tempered outdoor rated light diffusive plastic that will take light and then glow in the monarch's natural color. Yeah, so it would be polycarbonate because that, yeah.
So would that shine down onto the ground, or is it more illuminated when you look up at it?
It's more like
I think that's
a illuminated.
Yeah, it's a soft.
If the sun was straight above.
Well,
then-
during the day, it will light up because it's translucent.
Yeah.
It has a tint, so there will be like a orange glow that's caused by sun. Obviously, if the sun is right above it, it's much brighter to look at it than if the sun is at an angle.
Right.
As sun is setting, the lights will slowly take over, and do
LED light?
and the LED lights will do something similar, but in a more programmable way. So the cells in the wings will be programmed to represent the butterflies flapping and like inspired by their movement. Although the wings don't move, the lights will bring more light into the butterflies, and everything is controlled by a small computer, so they can be programmed to any setting in terms of when we should turn it off or what brightness we want, all of that.
So going back to what council question, what do you see during the day, during the program?
Yes, on the ground physically, we want to have a stamped migratory path of the monarchs. So it will not be illuminated. It's actually stamped in the concrete, just to bring attention to this great journey these monarchs take to visit us during the summer or during the winter and go back during the summer. So that's the experience on the ground from down. If you're under it, you will experience the glow and the murmuration the lights do during that's during the night. During the day, you'll just like see these beautiful butterflies naturally like so illuminated by the sun.
Yeah, I imagine it kind of glowing. Yeah, so I think this is a great.
Which monarch wings are a bit translucent anyway.
That's
So-
true.
So
So
that's-
when you look at it like a dormant monarch that's resting, it's actually like close to brown. It almost looks like a fall leaf.
Yeah.
Maybe partially because of that, it will help them not get eaten by like some sort of prey on top of the toxin they have. But once they start like flying, they become more and more orange.
Yeah.
So we want to capture that flutter they do, like how they travel, and capture that into the animations we're going to write. Thank you. Yeah, I accidentally discovered the story of monarchs when I was like in the Bay Area.
Yeah, I was wondering too.
What would be seen by the residents?
Around
So-
the-
I'm just gonna, for Cliff, you naturally talk fairly soft, so I'm just gonna amplify. So Cliff was asking more clearly for the apartments that are above the piece, what's their experience with the art piece?
So butterflies are going to be at different angles, like in this 3D space that's, let's say, a column of 10 by 10 by 25 feet. And then so because they're angled and are at this height, they can be visible, parts of the butterflies can be visible from far away. And based on where the resident is, whether on the ground or elevated, you'll see this glimpse of butterflies kind of captured in action, trying to reflect them as they were flying there.
So it'll be a different angle.
Angles, yeah.
They're not mobile, right?
They're not mobile.
How big are the butterflies?
About 5 by 6 feet.
Ooh, wow, that's a statement.
That's,
And how many butterflies will you?
I believe 5,
Like that.
like that. And then we are working with a structural engineering firm licensed in California. So the design will go through their analysis, and that will determine all the final numbers and everything.
So from what I'm hearing then is that there's going to be on the ground, there's going to be a path
Yeah,
of
tiny butterflies.
butterflies that'll lead one to this sculpture.
Not necessarily. that could be implemented, but like, yeah, so when let's say we were given 1 square on the ground.
I see.
So if you give us 1 square, in that square, we are going to show the path.
Okay,
Potentially a rough outline of the US and then how they travel.
I see. Okay, so the path is on that square.
On the pad.
On the path.
Yeah.
Do we know where that'll be the position in the park? Has that been determined yet?
When the rendering that was originally provided in terms of scope, it's going to be fairly central in the park. I'll need to stop the share to bring up the old file, but that was kind of the placement.
There's an honor adjacent to the path.
Yeah,
But there is a path.
there's a path there through it.
Yeah, it's very close to that.
Went over the, like, the placement, like the voltage and stuff.
We've seen the place not far, just.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like we have.
Yeah, I'm just trying to recall that.
Yeah.
And will this basically just tie into whatever other lighting power is going into the park so that when the park shuts down, it shuts down too? Is that, or is it more
So-
complicated?
The question on power, because there's power in the park to serve kind of the basic utilities of the park, but there is no actual lighting in the park.
Okay.
So this is a separate electrical feed that would need to support this. So based upon the comment about how this could function with lighting is it would need to be basically programmed to turn off.
Yeah.
Almost like a timer. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
it flips at
But this,
9 or it flips at 6 PM or whatever it is and just.
yeah, this fact in the dark sounds really
Yeah.
nice.
And even if it's only for 2 hours, I think it's well worth it.
Yeah. Oh,
Could
yeah.
it be
No,
that
that's-
just
and there's a lot of people.
Because I think it
It's up
would
to the
be,
park in the city.
be kind of a shame to turn out completely at night, and that's
No,
when it will
but-
have the most
Yeah,
impact.
the park's shut down.
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah,
there's
it's still
a lot
look
of
on the
people out
sidewalk
walking their
and-
dogs and stuff. in the
Yeah,
evening,
people walk their
especially in the
dogs
summer,
and-
so they'll see it.
And this is not, the average park, or yeah, when it shuts down at night, it is completely off limits. It is actually, a passageway between people living in these apartment buildings as well. So it's gonna see people walking back and forth. It's surrounded on 3 sides by, you know, like 3 or 4-story apartment buildings. They're gonna have their lights on all night. We can't legislate that. There's street lights. There's like a 4-lane road and then train station and light rail tracks. It's like not exactly the nature reserve, and it's pretty well lit at night. I've seen this park at night, and this one sculpture is not going to make or break, you know, the whole
The dark sky.
the third
Yeah.
yeah, this will have very minimal
It's a pretty
impact.
shot.
Yeah, it's spin shot.
It's among other apartments, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have something, I don't know even if it's like there's any time, no, but is this the right moment to bring up? Because last time we talked about the coloring, it was after the VAC meeting, after we voted, there was one lady on the side. She showed us a color palette of.
She wanted a
this-
different species of butterfly.
She said
right?
this is native to.
She really recommended
This,
it.
this area,
Yeah.
so like, is it too late to even talk about, cause if it's even too late to even talk about it, then not even bring it up, the coloring, I mean, I liked it, I thought it's more interesting than just black and brown.
I think the monarch
Monarch is a special butterfly that carries significance. Because
You should check this one
I
native to
know.
this area.
the monarch has a very special importance.
Looks like that.
Yeah.
People are so familiar with them already.
Yeah.
It has the story of
Yeah.
migration and like how a species could live its life in this multi-generational journey between like across the continent.
No, cause I'm not,
Yeah, no,
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'd say let's keep the artists out of that.
And I find monarchs very inspiring.
so this is not a monarch, this is not.
No.
No.
No, monarchs are pretty.
And trust me, there are many groups of
I've seen
butterflies, like blue marble is very
But
good.
they're smaller, yeah.
The one question I have with using monarchs, is we already have monarchs in the Mariposa Park. So is that a consideration?
I think it seems to me like
That's
the
all.
migratory aspect of the butterflies is kind of important.
Well.
And you can't just swap out.
In Mariposa Park, they just refreshed the playground to highlight the monarch butterfly there, which wasn't highlighted as it was before, but now it's.
Yeah, so I don't know how many people get around to Mariposa. It's a little,
Well, I get it every day.
I love it, and it's a great park, but it is kind of tucked away if you don't know where to look. I think it may be in the.
The people, just bring it up,
Yeah.
since we're
Yeah, sure.
Shepherd Park.
So.
I'd just like to say, I really appreciate the time and energy you put into this and the level of detail. I'm excited about seeing this.
So I think one of the things, we had some prompt questions for the VAC to consider. Once again, this was being re-referred to you to give some direction to the artists or come up with a direction. So want to make sure we're coming back to kind of addressing the key piece, which is, should LED lighting be in it, for one? Two, how much lighting? What are the constraints of lighting? I think that would be very good to get your guidance so we can work with the artist and then develop the memo to go back to city council. So would really like the VAC's kind of general consensus on how much lighting, making sure if there's going to be lighting to some degree, how would it conform with the dark skies?
So, can I get just that part? About, I'm a little hesitant about saying, I guess before we have developed a citywide dark skies policy, saying we're going to limit light out to X amount of lumens or whatever, like craft our own policy before the bigger one that will cover the whole city. And because this art is programmable and can be changed after the fact, my preference is to say, rather than like only limit the public art at this park, lighting wise, and nothing else, not the trains and the cars and the street lights and everything. We're just gonna turn down public art preemptively ahead of a dark skies thing and then see what happens later. I would rather kind of wait until our dark skies policy is formed by the city and then say, okay, that applies to everything equal, including public. Because we don't want to make
it doesn't, it seems like it doesn't matter if the power's gonna go off, what is it, an hour after sunset?
Well,
I mean, that it's still, what are we in? We're in nautical twilight after, an hour after sunset. So there's a point where there's still plenty of light in the sky. If that's when the power goes off on this, the dark sky policy doesn't even matter.
And this is the part. So there's lighting, right? I would think the part, lighting, rules.
There is no lighting.
No, that's what I'm saying. We don't have a policy right now, and I would like to wait.
No, I mean, there is no lighting in this park, right?
But
But
the
this
part
one
is.
is directly.
Wait. There are lights in, park. I mean, there are lights, rules for parks, I think. And I think this should conform to what those light rules are when they are on and off. That would be for timing, so.
Like the street lights, same as.
Park,
Yeah.
in a park, within a park.
The
It's in the park.
the park
So
will be
whatever the park,
closed and the power will go off, right?
well, I don't know what they are. No, I don't know,
What is it? John, do you know?
but I'm just saying.
You
is
said
that
it was
there-
an hour after sunset, right?
Well, that's one of the parks
Close.
closed.
No, I'm just saying, there are. I would think there are rules now about lighting. I don't know, this is in a park, there are lights within it, there must be rules for lights within a park.
No,
This should conform to whatever those are.
if we had
That's what I'm
rules,
saying.
I would agree with.
Well,
I think what we do have.
I'm just asking,
We live right next to
Okay,
Cooper
wait,
Park.
John,
and-
wait,
Wait,
We have a policy of.
just wait. So there are, I'm assuming that this is part of, it should fit the park's rules.
Yeah.
There are lighting rules for park, it should fit in with it.
And I have an answer.
Okay, wait a second, that's one. Second, there are, rules about ambient light for the dark skies. That's a second issue,
Mm.
which this should conform to, whatever those are. That's my own point, is that this should fit into the general rules that we have
Yeah.
established, rather than setting up separate rules.
Yeah.
That-
I totally agree with you on the second point especially, but once
Yeah.
dark skies rules come out, we should have that apply to public art. As for the first part, I think we currently have a closing time for parks. I don't think we have lighting specific rules for parks. I may be wrong, maybe John is.
So our colleague from Public Works, David Printy, is here. David?
I apologize for my lateness. I forgot. Okay. So generally, for most lighting and parks or anywhere, private development, they have rules about, cut off and you're not projecting straight up. I mean, the general configuration rules that are applicable citywide already, that I think apply here. And I don't recall the angle and so forth of the butterflies themselves, but generally they're pointing down and that's where the lights are. Presumably those lights could be recessed in such a way that people
So I think
at an angle won't start looking at the light source, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Directly. So to experience the light effect, you have to be generally within a 45-degree angle or so of the object. And so I think, and those are things that we can work on in detail in the, development phase here. And then as you're saying, and I apologize, I don't have the dark skies timeline. If that's something that is there a timeline for development of such a thing?
Not at the present time.
But other municipalities have public guidelines that are pretty well understood.
Mhm.
So I think if there's a concern about meeting something, you could refer to those. I think San Jose has one. I'm sure it wouldn't be all that different.
And we live right next to Cooper Park, and there's a pathway through that a lot of people walk on. And, there's lighting in there that's basically street light equivalent that, you can read by it too. So if all we're trying to do is conform to those kind of standards, that would be you would be overselling this art. You would be overlighting this art if it was at that light. It would be a mistake.
I got, this where I was coming from, for answering council was that the piece will conform with city guidelines, finding in parks in the dark sky. Great.
Well, and it sounds like you guys are good listeners too. So when you find it's a little light, you'll go, oh, okay, let me get on my phone app and I'll correct it.
And you're adding in
So
the piece,
Exactly.
timing,
Yes.
which can conform with what the city has.
Yeah.
and for rules.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that what we want is that the piece doesn't have exceptional rules. It fits the normal rules for parking and ambient light.
And I want to create a set of rules that applies just for public art.
Right.
We know,
Yeah.
well, I mean, whatever the rules are, this conforms to.
Can it just be that we report back to council that we are satisfied that the artists are conforming and it's all going to, we're satisfied with what they're doing? since
I would
we've
make
heard
a
that?
slightly more nuanced motion. I have one question, to clarify question. So the only lighting rules I was previously aware of in parks were things like tennis courts or like at the dog park at Rainstorm Park where they're like very bright lights, right? And then they're either on a timer where you press the button, lights up for half an hour, and there's a definite cutoff time in consideration of residents right there, stuff like that.
Right.
Is that decided on a park by park basis, or are there actually overarching city guidelines that cover all of parks?
I don't know the answer to that question. I imagine it does very much relate to the immediate residents.
Yeah.
If there are apartments next door or this. I mean, most of our parks are next to the residents because we're a fairly compact city.
Yes.
So,
Okay. So I guess the motion, I would like to draft to say that this public art should be run by David Brenke and you can have a look at it, make sure it complies with what we do in parks generally, and if we, at some point in the future, if and when we make a dark skies ordinance, we'll talk to public art as well. And
Oh, I have a thought. Do we have any lighting in that path at all? Or for this, like Cooper has a, like equivalent
Yeah,
of a street light.
It's
This
a whole
one,
different park.
this one doesn't, right? Okay.
There is no there is no specific lighting for the park.
Uh,
There may be lighting
then more.
from the street light on Evelyn, but that's
And-
serving the street
Yeah, that's
and the apartments, but there is no specific design for light in that park
Got it.
for that park.
Okay, then I would,
Light from the apartment complex.
Yeah, there's-
yeah,
It's-
but it's not inside the park. I see. what you
Yeah,
mean.
so the public park is like right here, and then you could, like, one step across the line and you're on private property, and there's light.
Alright,
There's a
that's
park.
kind of good. I was gonna say, what light temperature we're gonna use, like soft white, whatever.
Yeah.
So in this case, nothing to match, so it's,
It's gonna be nice, warm.
Yeah, I would hope that.
But,
LEDs are
it's
on the lower
open,
end,
it's
but
not to
doesn't,
match anything, yeah.
2000s something Kelvin, and not like
Mm.
the bright blue 6000s, but
Yeah.
I probably would have to ours.
Okay.
So are there any further questions or discussion? We do have a member of the public that wishes to speak on this item before you consider further direction.
One more thing is on the question of whether the should the lights shut off completely. I mean, I think they should be allowed to close softly and because what's the point of paying for?
I would bring that up to the Parks and Rec, not us.
I don't think so. We're the visual arts committee, and this is the public art sculpture. So let me say what I tease first. If we're going to pay for a sculpture that lights up, then it seems kind of a waste to have it most of the time when that lighting will be just. So I'd like to have it glow softly and not, there's gotta be some happy medium for dark skies between completely off and blazing bright. And I think we can find a happy medium where it's kind of a nice split.
So I would disagree because this is in a park. The park defined is the area. If we were in Plaza, City Plaza or Transit Center, be different rules. But this is within a park, so I think it has to conform with what the park guidelines are. So whatever the park guidelines are for lighting, it should fit in. And we
I
should
don't think we have guidelines for public art.
bring it back up to the park.
But-
to park.
So just for so once again, as I mentioned, Community Services Department had suggested that basically when it gets dark, the park is closed and there is no light. That was the feedback from Community Services Department.
So isn't there an exception for pedestrian throughways or not right of ways, such as Pioneer Park? Even though the park is closed after sunset, because it is a path that connects people in different parts of the city and you're allowed to walk through it at night, then that park has an exception where there can be lighting.
But I think you're talking about a park that's designed with lighting in it to serve that specific need because people are doing this. This is meant to be a park that effectively is closed.
But not to those residents that live there and who will be walking back and forth to visit their friends at night. Are they they're not gonna go around the perimeter of the park.
Well, then I would.
If they're just walking across the way, they're going to walk through.
So I would say then that the residents, if they want the sculpture to be lit, should come to the Parks and Rec and request it.
I think they should. The views. Or.
It's a park.
We can get input.
I'm sorry, it's a park. It's a park.
Well, we could go pretty hands off.
The engineering, I apologize, but I won't cross the line. I mean, I'm not the operating department. I don't represent them. They're my client, if you will. So I defer to their operating role. That's where I stay in my lane.
So engineering wise, you just.
I meet the codes and requirements and the requests of the operating departments of the public.
Yeah.
Sometimes they aren't.
Yeah, so it would really, once you're able to, dig a little and do some research, it would be very beneficial for us to know, like, are there these hard and fast rules that apply to all parks, but lights have to shut off, all lighting at this hour. something like that.
Yeah, it's gotta depend on, I think they're highly dependent on the operating. Yeah, but
That's the
yeah,
feeling.
we have, I love the idea of living in the neighborhood and walking by and just seeing this faint sort of
Yeah, I think
moving
I think
around.
Walter
Although,
and I-
on the other hand, we have no history
Yeah.
of messing with anything
Yeah.
once it's built.
Yeah, and
You know,
if
then
I'm
we
taking a
are
walk
hands
and
off.
I'm walking around the sidewalk, that I don't have to trespass, I don't have to break the law and go to the park. I could look over there and enjoy this butterfly sculpture and I'm walking my dog. And that would be.
Yeah.
But it can't be us. That has to be people who own the park. If this was,
Really disagree with you.
yeah,
So we,
it's a good thing.
most of our self-enforced. And we
I
don't
know,
go to the.
but
first
that's,
check every single
that's
time we have to make a
wrong-headed.
decision.
That's because of the K5 policy. That's why we want to get the strategy. We shouldn't be limited to parks. To be deciding where good places are for art in the city, get money for, and populate them. That's a different strategy than what we have to have. Right now, we're kind of limited to putting it into a park. So I say we have to limit it to what the rules are for that park. If though we had the freedom to put things where we thought they should go, like the plaza or the transit center or Castro Street, where there's public out all the time, then there are different rules for lighting and enjoying. But we're not there yet. When we get the new strategy, maybe we can have to do that. But right now, I said the philosophical differences are conforming to the jurisdiction of the park, where we're putting the art, or does the art represent?
Well, I think we've already gotten enough guidance, though, that we would have to really be forceful if we wanted to change that, because it sounds like they want it to go out at night. You know, council.
That. So once again, a park project starts at the Parks and Recs Commission and they seek feedback from the community of what they want in a park, and the park is then goes through iterations to design. So when we came forward with this RFP, it was supposed to be a natural park. It doesn't have play structures, it doesn't have that kind of thing. So when we do a call for artists, we stipulate this is the kind of park it is. It's more of a, I'll call it a passive type park. So the call for artists was to be reflective of that, and the selected artist, I think, was really trying to focus on the natural aspects of the monarchs. And I don't mean to be projective, but that was what was selected in keeping in that vein of the park. And so the issue of lighting is a new one. It wasn't necessarily anticipated as part of this process. But the conversation at council was to have this come back and explore this, and specifically called out the lighting and, in fact, you know, how would this interact with dark skies? So that is something that is obviously what they want some consideration given to it, and they want you to deliberate about what that is. So I think as staff to this committee, what I'm hearing is, you know, have the conversation internally with the respective departments where the VAC would like to go, and so long it's kind of conforming within what we envision for the park, maybe that's where it stops. The intent is to come back to VAC, like this was meant to have a conversation. We needed to work with looking up arts to make some modifications. We built in this time to come back ahead of coming back to council. So the intent was to come back with any type of modification before going back to council. But we're trying to keep this project on time. So this is why we have a quick turn. So the intent is, we heard a couple different things. We can certainly have a conversation with the Looking Up Arts team. We can certainly have additional conversations with our community services department or public works teammates based upon what you've provided here, and maybe flush this out a little bit more. and to what degree, and then come back with, all right, is this kind of meeting the objectives of what we heard? Is it kind of aligning to the guidance that council's given? And then you can decide at that point.
Yeah.
Yes, or we need to chew on this more, but the intent is to come back with an augmentation for this. And I will remind folks, there is a person wishing to speak on this side.
Before we get to public commentary, I think you've just been quiet. What you've been thinking.
Hmm?
What do you think? You've been-
About?
I just haven't heard much from you. So,
Did you say there are problems with moving the state?
yeah, okay, we'll go. We'll go to the public. Bruce.
All right, Bruce.
Hi, everyone. Again, Bruce England. This time I'm going to put on my Green Spaces Mountain View hat. We haven't had the opportunity to see this revised version, and I don't believe we discussed the earlier one either. So this is kind of a first for me to see it, and I think for our members to see it. We've had some discussion within our ranks about the concept, and we don't like the idea of it being lit up at night, but it sounds like you have worked it out where once you get past dusk, then it won't be lit up at all, sounds like. And maybe that's okay. But looking at it, I can't say I'm really crazy about the design, to be honest with you. It looks, at least in the sketch, and maybe it would be helpful to see an actual mock-up of what it would look like in reality in that environment and with the colors they would actually be in. But it looks to me like pinned butterflies on corkboard. It looks like captured butterflies. It doesn't look like free butterflies. And we're moving in a direction, the city is moving in a direction where we're doing things more naturally. We have a pollinator garden at Cuesta Park now, which is managed by Community Services and Green Spaces Mountain View. And we have a Girl Scout troop habitat, pollinator habitat at Heritage Park. And there's discussion about doing a butterfly habitat at Mariposa Park. The butterfly pattern underneath the play structure seems a bit odd. It's not the topic of discussion here, but it's rubber. It's not, again, it's not natural. And so if there were a way, and this is just totally revisiting, so I'm going against the idea of a quick turnaround, there's probably nothing you can do with this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. If there were a way to actually make a structure that was actually a butterfly habitat structure for the butterflies as they're migrating, with the art around the structure itself as integrated with the structure, so you have something that is natural, actually plays with the butterflies themselves, but has artistic elements as part of that structure. This is something that we've talked about with VAC about art in general, having landscaping sorts of things around structures. I've used the Berlin Wall structures in front of the library as an example of how not to do it. The Berlin Wall pieces are nice as they are, but it's surrounded by concrete hardscape, an old phone booth, a trash can. There's just seemingly no thought at all about what goes around the perimeter of a location like that. So my sort of the short version of what I've just said is that it would be better to do this very differently from how it is right now. If all you really need and can work with is feedback about the lighting, then maybe you've addressed that by saying no lighting after dusk, but I would like to see you go further than that. And that's my comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Bruce.
I'll just say, since I have a friend that runs a butterfly habitat at an animal park, yeah, turning this into some kind of butterfly habitat, or turning anything in Mountain View into butterfly habitat would be challenging. But yeah, it's too late.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Artists. What are the posts made of?
It would be steel.
Steel, okay. So we can not even, I mean, it's not gonna even, it's not gonna be a real habitat, but we cannot even like use some like a material like fake to be like a tree or branch or something. So it's more like butterflies in the nature. These these things.
So you're suggesting like the structure to look like trees that are,
Yeah, look like natural pieces, organic pieces.
If we're going to do that to scale, the tree would. It's 5 foot butterfly.
You know, instead of these pillars right now, like in the steel, like shiny
Right.
chrome.
but
Could
right
we-
now the attention and the attraction of the butterflies, not necessarily the steel. Or not at all the steel, but if you then confuse the concept in this iteration with a tree, that would take away the effect that the butterflies would be.
So I try to think it's kind of too late in the process to do that.
It's giant, see?
Yeah,
It's like
but
chrome.
also,
And
well, what I
then,
like about the black steel is that at night, that will disappear and you'll just see butterfly swans. Right? In the daytime, not so much, but the idea is that they're flying. If you replace it with a tree, then now they're perched on a tree and like down to the proportions get all weird.
and then we'll get into what are the trees that we.
Is it a native tree? Is it an oak?
No,
And
it's
we
not
get
a
into people with
It's not tree, it's a bush that they call,
Well, it depends on the region, so in Santa Cruz, it's eucalyptus. And then like they feed on milkweed.
milkweed, that's right, yeah, yeah.
They feed on milkweed and they rest on eucalyptus trees.
Right, yeah.
Do we have a little bit space on the bottom of the base to have a milkweed go around it? That's an easy-ish fix.
I mean, that would be something we would ask landscaping, not the artists. Be like, hey, that's up to the people who plant plants in the park.
Well, and then it turns into an allergy nightmare.
Or
Well, milkweed is poisonous. The
Oh, we-
only thing that lives on milkweed is the mottle butterfly.
So they extract the toxins from the
Yeah.
milkweed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
therefore animals know not to eat the monarchs, but they
Yeah.
will get toxin from it. And there's some
People are
butterflies
allergic to milk.
that,
Yeah, exactly.
and there are some butterflies that don't eat the milkweed, but they evolve to look like the monarchs.
Yeah.
And therefore, in the nature, they're also avoided and they benefit.
oh,
I think we're getting a little
Yeah.
too far
Yeah, this
from a piece of art.
Well,
yeah,
you know-
this art is pretty far along in the
Yeah.
design.
And-
process.
Well, yeah, we should have talked about that kind of
Months ago.
stuff.
If we said
you know,
this was
6
gonna be
months
a
ago or
habitat,
whatever.
that should have been
Yeah,
in the very first meeting, and also I went and started to change the look. If they presented it to us like the old pipeline proposal, then yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good, clearly you've also done the research.
Oh, I love the milk.
Okay.
Mhm.
Which,
Yeah, okay,
yes, so let's vote on something.
You don't need to vote. The intent was to come back. I think between myself and David, we've heard a few different variations. We'll circle back with the artist team and
I
make some.
think Jesse and I agree with this one, we disagree on the extent, which is
Yes.
where the borders are, which is, you know, fine,
Yeah.
fine discussion, you know. But for this project, I think it's pretty clear.
I think what happened was the city council wanted to kick the can on both sides to us, and we're kicking the can back to them and saying, guys, make a policy, make a policy. But
Well, that's how government
because
works.
it's not up to us to craft the dark sky policy. That's generally the base.
Well, if you turn this up to max.
Yeah.
I bet it wouldn't come close to violating anybody's dark sky policy.
And we're intentionally putting, like, the overall wattage will be low.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
little bitty LEDs encased in orange. So,
The orange will take
That would be very nice.
most of the brightness.
Yeah. Did you have an opinion on whether you want the lights off at night or softly going?
I think soft glow sounds really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that, but yeah,
I mean, we can do a demo, like, once it's constructed.
Yeah.
We can all go there and do a field trip.
that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, good.
The feedback. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a good.
It's a real pleasure. No, it's-
Yeah. Just happy to be here.
It's good to see you.
We were at the Mountain View High School Career Fair, right from here. We came from there to here. Yeah, we are first, but we've been doing all sorts of Mountain View things. So.
It's exciting.
Congratulations. Everybody.
Career fair there.
We were just came from the Avid Career Fair. We had a little table there.
The students are very curious.
They were very curious about art. We had a line the whole time to talk to us.
Well, and you're the real deal, you know, you're real professionals, not just, you know, somebody hooping around in their garage. So that's good you're there.
Well, thanks for joining us. See you in person. And
Yeah.
that's seems like that's it for your particular event. You're welcome to hang out if you want for the rest of the meeting. You can also just. Okay, good afternoon. I'm gonna use this back. Okay,
Thank you.
and what's your name again?
My name is Srikant. I go by Sri.
Sri. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. And Leslie.
Nice to see you.
All right,
Thanks,
so
everyone.
yes.
Have a good night.
So we're on to 7.1, new business, and this is something Phil mentioned earlier, some discussion on joint meeting, forming arts committee.
So I think so two things, on this particular item in the memo, if you actually go to the very back of the packet, there's a little bit of a comparison about the role the VAC plays, which you all know the role you play, as an advisory body. But there is I'll say cousin advisory body being the Performing Arts Committee. And their role in the Performing Arts Committee is really looking at the other aspect of art and culture, which is the performing arts. And within their work plan for May, they are also looking to do collaborations with other advisory bodies. So the purpose of this agenda topic is to get some initial feedback from the VAC on things we can have, basically hold a joint meeting with the Performing Arts Committee on kind of shared interests. So this is an opportunity to kind of put a few different things out on the table that we can talk with the staff, that the staff for the Performing Arts Committee, and come up with a shared agenda. There's genuine interest in wanting to collaborate with the VAC. And so this is an opportunity for staff on this side to get some interest in like, what are the top shared interest topics? And then to be able to have a productive meeting between the two bodies. The nice thing about the Performing Arts Committee, much like the Visual Arts Committee, they also meet in the evening. So it'll be a little bit easier, I think, to kind of coordinate an actual joint meeting with them. But the back page of the packet obviously outlines kind of their roles and the things that they focus on. And certainly this body has approved art within the CPA on a rotating basis. So what are some of the areas you'd like to discuss? And as your staff, I was contemplating this a little bit, and when we do the call for artists for the rotating art display, if we know what performances are going to be going on throughout the year, why not do a specific call for artists so that the art on display is maybe representative of the performances that may be going on in the CPA? Because typically they book the CPA out 12 months in advance.
Yeah. I
So
think
there's-
that's, yes, like we can put that in the call, like, hey, if your plan's gonna be this much, but
It would
Probably
be
not
nice if
consider.
it worked out.
it would be, nice. I just think the chances of it working out are very low because.
Well,
It's good to be aspiring.
We can talk about it.
the trick partly is that, you know, at any given time, yeah, if the art's there for even just a month, and I think sometimes it's longer than that, you've got, you know,
But, yeah.
TYT and the Lithuanian dance group, and, you know, there's a there's a diversity of things
Yeah,
going on.
there's more.
But still,
So-
the try.
As an example, maybe that is of interest. So once again, trying to figure out what are some topics that we can actually, instead of
Yeah.
going in blind to conduct.
But what do you hope to get out of this meeting? I guess, what are their goals? Are there?
That's obviously something we need to think about. Once again, the role and what they are focused on is events that go on in that space.
Mhm.
The VAC has talked about doing artist showcase. Is there an opportunity to partner there? Those are the kinds of things, recognizing there's kind of two pieces of this puzzle. Both of you reflect the culture of Mountain View. One's from a performing and one's from a visual. So where are those synergies? Or where would you like to create some new synergies?
So what they figure, like the performing art, they sometimes like have stage art. So would they like to display that as public art to, you know, instead of do they want to provide us like a special exhibition?
So when you say stage art, you mean like dropped?
Yeah, the artists, I'm sure they came up with that kind of design or costume, the stuff they wear.
So like the lizard boy, lizard man, whatever that show.
Yeah, so yeah, the artists, they made effort to make them. Do you want to be seen?
Okay.
You know, factor,
That's a good idea.
yeah,
Good.
factor that in with
Yeah.
our usual cycle. You know, just have that be one of them.
The other topic would be, interesting for me is your performing art. That's music, performing art, creating art. Well, we create art. Can we have an event where people create art, create music, and create art, create painting, create photography, and do things rather than just describe?
Yeah, we've had this,
Creative thing.
like suggestions of ideas before from VAC members, like, oh, what about a multicultural or like as an event more so than just a static art piece,
Yeah.
like something that is a little more participatory or active,
Yeah.
but that might be like, you know, physical performance or singing or something. And then I've always been hesitant about going into those ones because we're the visual art.
Right, but like on the, when was it, during the Arts and Wine Fair, we had, the group came out and they did a painting.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful.
Yeah.
But have an event where the community can come and create art within, as a performing art.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, installations. Stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that they have that.
Other ideas, once again, just kind of throwing things out.
I'm interested in maybe expanding these spaces available to display.
Yeah.
I think we mentioned this before about the second floor, the possibility of hanging things there.
Mhm.
Necessarily my thing. Like, for example, if you were gonna display costumes in specific, show that had just wrapped up at the Performing Arts Center, then it would be nice to be able to display those costumes, the second floor, and still have our artists on the first, rather than displacing.
Ideally, if you're gonna just, I mean, the people going into the Performing Arts Center, they just saw those costumes. Ideally, you want to display those costumes somewhere else.
Yeah. maybe
And,
some kind
and,
of,
and do a crossover and make people say, oh, I hadn't thought about, you know, people who wouldn't normally go in there, get their attraction.
Location, other public buildings maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, community center, senior center, teen center, there's like lots of public buildings the city has
Yeah,
access to, so maybe we can explore those options.
Well, and, yeah, that's a whole nother topic. I won't even go there. Yeah, I'd actually be a little interested. I mean, they don't want me saying, you know, you guys need more Zydeco music. Why don't you fix it? You know, you guys need some, you know, they don't want me to critique, but I'd kind of be interested if the people that work over there have any feedback or for me, for the main thing, do they hear feedback from the customers, you know, from the people coming to see the performing
So,
arts? Do they get feedback on what the visual art
Yeah.
is?
Yeah, an idea to be an idea, do they have in the visual art and the performing arts, do they have themes that when they're scheduling their acts, like Zydeco or whatnot? Do we then tie that in with the theme for art? So they know the planning ahead that we're going to have this type of festival and performance. Can we tie that in with art?
Well, we were just talking about that and it's all so mixed up over there. They don't really do themes
Well, here's the
that
thing.
go on for more than 2 nights.
They
Yeah.
they don't get to choose
They don't get
their
to-
favorite, you know, plays or type of music or opera or ballet or whatever, all the.
Books this, yeah.
People rent the space from them and pay them, and they say,
Oh.
okay, you do whatever show you want, you pay for this month. So they have very little control over what type of
Oh, you're
performance is
right.
there. Compared to
Right.
us, we have a lot of control here, saying we want, Mexican American art for this park or whatever it is, or whatever theme we want to set. They can't really set themes.
You're
Just as an
right.
FYI.
Yeah.
That's historical, or is that?
That's just kind of the way it was
think it's
organized from the beginning.
Capitalism.
And they haven't changed it. They're supposed to fund themselves. John might know more. But
You are correct. It's a box and that box is a rentable box.
But don't they go out and
They-
look for? people,
They,
or you just a box available?
I think they might advertise to say, please rent our space if they're, especially if they're like, have a lot of openings and they need to fill the space. But they wouldn't be like, we're only looking for, Shakespearean theater troops. They wouldn't say that.
so I mean, I think just kind of building off a couple of different things, maybe something else to think about, and I know this has come up quite a bit. Right now, there's banners all throughout downtown that reflect the CPA and the performances, right? How do we think about maybe marketing art and culture more holistically? Maybe a place where there's shared interest, right? They want to see certainly the performances and events that go on there to be successful and making sure the community knows what's going on there.
Yeah.
And I've heard the VAC be very clear. We want the public to know we have art in Mountain View and come enjoy the art and contribute to the art and be part of the art and culture movement here. So it seems like to me there's kind of natural synergy on how to more just in general amplify art and culture and market art and culture
I really
more collaboratively.
So going back to the, this is a rentable space aspect of the Center for Performing Arts. If and when the VAC gets a greater budget, we could say, hey, public art strategy class, whatever, we're sitting pretty. Why don't we rent out the theater space for a week and have some, live painting or whatever the performing art is. But if it's like VAC sponsored installation or performing art or whatever you want to call it, circus arts, could be whatever, then that's a cool collaboration, right? We can have some live art up there, and it could be free to the public because we don't have the cost recovery requirement that the CPA has. We could just say, hey, this is sponsored by the VAC. First comes first served. Come see some art.
Which I don't know if there's enough interest that people will come see that. If it's at the Art and Wine Festival, they're there, it's a logical place for that.
Yeah.
For people to
free
turn off Game of Thrones on Thursday night and come down. On the other hand, I think like the banners or, some form of that, when this park opens up and we're gonna flip the switch on these butterflies and light up the neighborhood. Or, whatever, whenever we're gonna have one of those events, we could advertise that and it would be a win for parks and it'd be a win for us. But we could really emphasize that, hey, here's these artists and come meet them. And, that doesn't apply to any of this that we're talking about, but it's a great idea. Seems like a great idea.
Well, I don't know if you've seen this Instagram post that John's been doing with Downtown Biz, I think, but the Economic Development Department has been doing little art highlights.
Yeah.
And showing different less well-known pieces of public art. Because I feel like there's always the same like 2 or 3 Mountain View public art things that get shown off in like various magazines, city publishing, Chamber of Commerce publications, and it's always like, oh, I've seen that stuff before. So the one that you keep showing, it's like the Frog and Toad or the one right from the City Hall, the kind of.
The bottom line is we need a marketing budget.
Well, we keep building more art, and we're going to continue, having artists make more art for the city, so we can show that.
Yes, but we can certainly toot our horn when it happens.
Yeah.
So.
If we had a marketing budget, how do we market?
We don't have a specific marketing budget.
It's for specific events, when this art's finally finished, come look at it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like.
Your tax dollars at work.
You could say like park grand opening or whatever, art unveiling, that's one way to do it, but I also think it's value in going back and saying, you know, look at all these other cool sculptures we've made over the past couple of years that we maybe didn't advertise that well, but there's plenty of new art in the city that you might not have seen.
Are you
So-
recommending? You're recommending?
Well, but this,
Nobody does that.
I'm thinking, well, what John was saying about like in the bus stops, the Performing Arts Center has posters and stuff. We could have, you know, show off a mural or a sculpture and, you know, change it out every couple of months or whatever, and just say, so the people are more aware of the variety of public art that exists in that view, whether it's like online, or those other means.
there's a Parks and Rec, manual or brochure that's sent out to everybody about the.
Right, our- yeah.
We can influence within that.
Yeah, that's something more.
That's a great idea.
The one where people sign up for classes.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, well, that's a whole nother topic
Oh.
of conversation too.
You're saying that.
Are we gonna?
You know,
Well, so I would like to maybe offer one other comment of committee member Thompson's comment, which is a lot of times when the CPA artists are putting up their art, they have expressed interest in doing like an art show, right?
Mhm.
They'll be there,
Yeah.
but we always basically say that's on at their expense. Because it then becomes a facility rental.
Mhm.
So if you were really wanting to do something of like, hey, I'm displaying my 10 pieces at the city and actually shifting like you talked about a marketing budget, shifting the burden of that
Mhm.
away from the artist to actually come meet the artist and the art.
yeah,
Doing
Yeah.
something in the building in a different way,
Yeah.
right?
well, and that's more likely to
Yeah.
you know, promote grassroots art,
So
not,
then it could be,
you know,
So
I figure out.
that's more about like if there was a funding mechanism, then that could be offset. Because the artist can actually do that, but then it's a partial facility rental to do that, right?
Yeah.
Which is maybe contrary to
and then.
So-
that's certainly something to bring up
And they
at
have
this
the
joint
marketing
meeting.
piece. So we
You
could
know,
theoretically.
how about you guys
I
have a
like that idea, John. I think sorry, you guys, I don't know how to speak into this thing because,
we can hear you.
oh, those 2 points you brought up about, I think collaboration's always good. I think that the visibility of the Visual Arts Committee is pretty much non-existent. The only reason I even knew it was around is I have some friends in it. And I believe there'd other be people that would get more involved in just launching the idea about launching, say, the butterflies and making it a more publicly aware and exposed would draw the community into like, just, there's so much that I hear. I live in downtown Mountain View about the concerns of the lack of art, that if we start just showing that there is art, and I even expressed to a friend that you had taken those pictures and about all the public art in Mountain View, and she was jazzed. She's like, oh, I want to see that. So just to like, instead of the negativity, to transform it into like a positivity and more of an optimistic, you know,
Mhm.
just vision. And then this is kind of an out there idea, but when you talk about maybe working together and even with the community, maybe have like a performing art, visual art combo where someone there's this thing called Destination Imagination. Have you guys heard of it? It's done all over the world and it's mostly in high schools and colleges, and you come together and it's kind of like improv where you have a certain amount of time and you create the set and then you create the performance, whatever it is, and you're given something. So that would like bring performing art and visual art together. That's just like a quickie. But if we could do something, I don't know, once a year, just to get the community involved. It's like people that are acting at Foothill that are professional actors, but they're still doing what they love on their free time. So those are a couple of my thoughts.
Excellent.
It reminds me of something that the San Jose, I forget which theater, but Cineplex, you don't know what Cineplex thing? So they have it's mostly just a movie celebrations, but they also have traditionally had 3 artists at the theater. And they each do a painting, their live painting during that weekend, and then it's an event, people get to watch these artists live painting, they get to watch the finished product at the end, and then one of them gets picked out as a winner, and they get some. That's like, we could, it doesn't have to be that exactly, but there's a lot of things we could do, if we had the space to do it, and Performing Arts Center is a space.
Supposed to do it.
Yeah.
Time it in with maybe some event that's occurring there.
And it's just sitting
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, we can rent out the second theater,
Not like
do a
we're
little
bumping
art show.
somebody else.
Mhm.
No, these are good things to talk about.
Yeah, we maybe fill in, we could help them if we're filling in any gaps in there.
Or even like, you know how they have the Peninsula Youth Theater? I don't know where this stands because I think it's at a camp or whatever, but I know it takes place in Dead Mountain View, and then sometimes the performances are in the Performing Arts Center. Maybe that there is also an opportunity for the youth to create, like, paint the poster, you know, and whatever it is. Just that could be some kind of collaboration too. So I like the coming together and merging of the arts, because it just makes it stronger, you know. The more people we know, the stronger the community, then the more impact it has.
And there's not always like that, such a clear division between, you know,
Yeah.
visual and performance.
No, we're stronger together. I just made that up.
And you get to know more people in the community, and you see people. I mean, it's kind of a win-win, I think. It's more powerful, and we all have that passion, whether it be, I mean, like you were talking about, even music, it's all art.
Don't get me started.
All right, I could turn my computer off and you won't even know. No, just kidding.
Yeah,
Okay, so it sounds like we've got a lot more
This is-
ideas now.
more to talk about than I thought.
And so we're basically just waiting on the staff to figure out a good date.
Yeah, so I'll work with Teresa Yvonne over at the Center for Performing Arts, share with her the concepts you've come up with, and then we'll look to circulate a date. As I said, for the performing arts, this has been an issue they wanted to address, and they were going to address it in May as a work plan item. So Teresa and I have been having conversations about doing this and trying to find where there's some other synergies. So appreciate the input and feedback from the committee. So this is a non-voting thing, and just feedback, and then we can come back with a proposed agenda for the VAC.
So then, no public commentary? Bruce still here?
Bruce is here. Any public comment on this item? I'm not seeing a hand raised.
Right, cool, no, all right, and 8, committee staff comments, questions, committee reports. No action is taken on any questions. Cool.
So I do have an update. At the last meeting, talked about bringing the public arts strategy because of the study session that was planned for May. The study session is moving. It is so the study session slots have been basically booked out for the rest of the year. Administratively, it is moving due to shifting of calendars. So the item was not here tonight because of that move. I do anticipate coming back to the VAC either next month or the month after. One of the things we're going to do in advance of the public art strategy going to city council is actually having a conversation with the VAC. A lot of conversations have occurred already, but framing it in a similar perspective of what's being asked of council, and having that as an attachment to the study session discussion with council. So that's going to get recast a little bit, but unfortunately, due to calendar shifting, this item is getting pushed administratively, so
Do you have a target date you think it will occur?
it would have to be basically after the summer recess, because all the slots for council for study session, it's kind of, they're all full now. This was direction that came down, late last week.
So it's September, October, fall, so in the new fiscal year.
In the new fiscal year.
Oh, when you said end of the year.
No, in the new fiscal year. If there was another slot, if there was a slot in the 2 June meetings, we'd go in June. There's not a slot to slot.
So does something like keep displacing us to keep getting all these steroids?
So is there, since this is being pushed out? Are there things that so some of us know certain council members. Should we, is it, once we're ready, and we have informal discussions?
We can always have informal discussions. I don't think staff will tell you what to say to council members, but you are free to approach them, whatever.
So it's not just sensitivity at the time, once we have kind of in our own minds what we're thinking going to. I mean, there's nothing to prevent us from doing a little education on our own, one-on-one.
I certainly encourage VAC members to advocate for the arts. It's totally fine to talk to council members, just adhere to the brand.
Right.
That means you don't go talk to council members and then go to talk to other ones and say, well, so-and-so said blank, blank, blank. And
So let's leave that question, because we're in section 8, which is just kind of announcements. We can put a pin in that, but this is not for really discussing.
That'll be another topic. Okay,
So
very good. Okay.
So that, I apologize, that's a decision that was communicated down to.
okay, so any questions from the public? Mr. England, I think we're just running in the background there.
Yep.
So, all right, adjournment. It's
7:30.
Half hour early, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, not so much. Oh, bye, Lacey.
Ours next
Good to
week.
go.